My girlfriend, Michelle, and I were in a tough spot. Rent in the city had gone through the roof, and our tiny apartment was eating up most of our paychecks. We were dreaming of saving enough for a down payment on a house, but it felt like an impossible goal. That's when I remembered William. William was an old college buddy, a bit of a loner, but always a good guy. He'd inherited his grandma's house a few years back, a big, rambling place on the outskirts of town. We hadn't seen him in a while, but I figured it was worth a shot. "Hey William," I started, a little awkwardly, when I finally got him on the phone. "Long time no see, man. Listen, Michelle and I were wondering, you wouldn't happen to have a spare room, would you? Just for a few months, while we save up?" There was a long pause on the other end. I thought he was going to say no, but then he chuckled. "A spare room? Dude, I've got like 3. Yeah, come on over. The guest room's all yours. No rent, just keep the place tidy, okay?" I couldn't believe our luck. "Seriously, William, you're a lifesaver. We'll be there this weekend." Michelle was ecstatic. We packed our lives into a few boxes, feeling like we'd won the lottery. The drive to William's house was longer than we remembered, taking us down winding country roads lined with dense woods. When we finally pulled into his driveway, the house loomed large and dark against the setting sun. It was even bigger than I remembered, with a tall, pointy roof and a wraparound porch that looked a little saggy in places. William greeted us at the door, looking a bit more tired than I remembered, with shadows under his eyes. "Welcome to the abode," he said, gesturing inside. The air in the house was thick, smelling faintly of dust and something else, something I couldn't quite place. Old wood, maybe, or just a house that had been closed up for too long. He showed us to the guest room. It was surprisingly large, with a big, 4-poster bed draped in a heavy, dark red fabric. The wallpaper was a faded floral pattern, and the windows were tall, looking out onto a thick patch of trees. "Bathroom's just down the hall," William said. "Make yourselves at home." The first few days were great. We settled in, enjoying the quiet and the extra space. William was around, but he kept to himself mostly, holed up in what he called his study at the back of the house. Michelle and I spent our evenings cooking together, watching movies, and just enjoying the peace. Then the sounds started. It began subtly. A soft creak on the stairs when no one was there. A faint whisper that seemed to drift from the empty hallway. At first, we blamed the old house, the settling wood, the wind. One night, I was woken by a tapping sound, light and rhythmic, coming from the wall next to the bed. I held my breath, listening. Tap. Tap. It sounded like someone was gently knocking from inside the wall. I nudged Michelle awake. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. She blinked, still groggy. "Hear what?" The tapping stopped. I shook my head, feeling foolish. "Nothing, I guess. Go back to sleep." But the next night, it was louder. A distinct thump from the room above us, followed by what sounded like something being dragged across the floor. We looked at each other, wide-eyed. "William?" Michelle mouthed. I shook my head. William's room was on the first floor, at the opposite end of the house. The sound was definitely coming from the attic, a space I knew William rarely, if ever, went into. "It's probably just the wind," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Over the next week, the sounds became more frequent and more unsettling. The tapping returned, sometimes accompanied by a low, mournful groan that seemed to vibrate through the floorboards. We heard what sounded like heavy footsteps pacing back and forth in the attic, always at night, always when we were trying to sleep. One evening, we were in the living room, trying to watch TV, when a sudden, ear-splitting shriek ripped through the house. It was high-pitched, like a woman screaming in pure terror, and it seemed to come from everywhere at once. Michelle jumped, spilling her tea. I felt my blood run cold. William appeared in the doorway, looking pale. "What was that?" he asked, his voice a little shaky. "You heard it too?" Michelle asked, her voice barely a whisper. He nodded slowly. "Yeah. Happens sometimes, just the old house." But the look in his eyes told a different story. He looked scared, truly scared, and that scared me even more. We started to avoid going upstairs after dark. The guest room, once a sanctuary, now felt like a trap. We spent most of our time in the living room, trying to pretend everything was normal, but the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. One morning, Michelle woke me up, her face ashen. "I heard voices," she whispered, her eyes wide. "Last night, from the hallway, they were arguing, really angry." "You must have been dreaming," I said, but a knot of dread was forming in my stomach. No. It was clear as day. A man and a woman. And then a crash. Like something heavy falling. I got up, my heart pounding, and went to the hallway. Nothing was out of place. The old grandfather clock in the corner ticked steadily. The air was still and quiet. But the feeling of unease was palpable. We tried to talk to William about it, really talk. One afternoon, I found him in the kitchen, staring out the window with a faraway look in his eyes. "William," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "Look, about these noises. They're getting pretty intense. Are you sure it's just the house settling?" He slowly turned, his eyes unfocused. "What noises?" he mumbled. "The screams, the footsteps, the tapping," Michelle chimed in, her voice strained. "It's really starting to freak us out." William just shrugged, a strange, blank expression on his face. "Old houses make noises. You'll get used to it." He turned back to the window, dismissing us. His reaction was more disturbing than the sounds themselves. It was like he was either completely oblivious or, even worse, pretending to be. That night, things escalated. We were lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, when a deep, guttural growl filled the room. It wasn't human, not exactly, but it was close, laced with something ancient and malevolent. It seemed to come from right under our bed. We both shot upright, our hearts hammering against our ribs. The growling intensified, vibrating the mattress beneath us. Then, the whole bed began to shake, gently at first, then violently, rattling the frame against the floor. The heavy curtains at the windows began to billow inwards, even though the windows were closed and there was no breeze. A cold, clammy hand seemed to brush against my ankle, and I yelped, scrambling back against the headboard. Michelle let out a terrified scream. "Get out!" I yelled, pulling Michelle out of bed. We stumbled towards the door, the growling echoing in our ears, the bed still shaking. As we reached the doorway, we heard a terrifying whisper, right behind us, chilling us to the bone. It was breathy and ragged, like someone speaking through a dying throat. "You're next." We didn't stop to look back. We ran, blindly, down the stairs, tripping over each other in our haste. We burst into the living room, panting, our eyes wide with terror. William was there, sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. He didn't even seem to notice our panicked entrance. "William!" I gasped, grabbing his arm. "We have to go. Something's in this house. We heard it. We felt it." He slowly turned his head to look at me, and his eyes were completely black. Not just dark, but truly, unnervingly black, like two empty wells. A chilling smile spread across his face, and his voice, when he spoke, was not William's. It was a raspy, ancient sound, full of malice. "Oh, they're always here," he whispered, that terrible smile widening. "You just finally heard them." Michelle screamed again, a raw, desperate sound. We didn't wait to hear another word. We tore out of the house, not even bothering to grab our bags, not looking back at the dark, looming structure. We jumped into our car, the engine sputtering to life, and sped away, leaving the house, William, and whatever horrors lurked within it behind us. We drove for hours, not knowing where we were going, just knowing we had to get as far away as possible. We never saw William again. We never went back for our things. The sounds, the whispers, the growling, they haunted our dreams for a long time. We learned to live with less, to be grateful for a small, safe apartment, far away from old, dark houses and the things that lurk in their shadows. And we never, ever asked a friend for a place to stay again without asking a lot more questions first.